for me, and I welcome their hatred.
What's up, everybody? This is Hater Radio. My name is Chris McLean. I'm here with my co-host, Ian Gibson. How are you, Ian?
I'm doing very good this week.
Yeah, obviously, sans beard right now, but
Yeah,
it's growing back out.
Last time I was here, but it'll be back in time. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into it. So, Week 9 preview. There's actually a good amount of good games that are out there, which, you know, sometimes we get some of these bad slates, but this is not one of them. Starting early on Thursday, Syracuse and Pitt. Me and Ian were talking off air about how back in the day, in the 2000s, that the Big East had a bunch of, you know, big Thursday, Friday games, usually seemingly all season long. And, you know, Syracuse and Pitt are some of those old Big East teams. So they're just kind of live up to the mantle here. So Syracuse is 5-1, I believe, or 6-1. I know they only have one loss. And then Pittsburgh is undefeated. So this is an interesting game as far as the ACC is concerned, because Syracuse has some pretty big wins. They beat UNLV and they beat Georgia Tech already. But Pitt, I don't know. I mean, they have some decent wins, but most of their wins, 3 of their wins were like by like 2 points or less. And they beat North Carolina by 10. So like they're not like really like destroying people. But I will say with Pitt and Syracuse, as far as the rankings are concerned, like statistically, both Pitt and Syracuse are really good passing at teams, which I feel like Pitt might be a little inflated because in some of their games they didn't fare too well passing wise. And then some of the other games that they played, they had like huge numbers against like terrible teams. So maybe that's a little inflated. But on the other hand, Syracuse is not. I believe McCord is definitely a solid quarterback. And, it, you know, as the second ranked best passing attack, I believe they'll continue that trend. On the flip side, for both of them, defensively, their passing defense is terrible. Syracuse is 89th and Pitt is 104th. So, you know, there is weaknesses there. So it more than likely will seem that both these teams are going to use the pass to attack both teams. I feel like also because Syracuse is one of the worst rushing offenses in the league or in the nation, that they're definitely going to focus on the passing attack, which, you know, definitely favors Syracuse there. But as far as Pitt goes, they're more balanced overall on the offense. They're 12th passing attack and 50th rushing attack. So their offense overall is more balanced, and I think they have a better chance to take advantage of that. Syracuse's defense is 49th on the run as well. So, you know, there's a chance that Pitt can be able to move the ball here. I like Syracuse, though, because I feel like they've been more battle tested against better teams. And I feel like Syracuse is going to win this game. It's going to be close, though. I'm going to say like a 31 to like 27 game. What do you got, Ian?
No, I'm right with you. I think between the two, they're pretty even on many aspects, especially when you look in the ACC rankings, both in offense and defense. They're flip-flopping in positions on each other. But I do think the difference is Syracuse, even though they did lose to Stanford, they had a really good win against Georgia Tech. They came out blazing against UNLV and got a big win up there when UNLV was really rolling there, and they got a win against NC State. Not taking anything away from Pitt, they are undefeated and rightfully so, but they've had some close wins against Cincy. The best win is that West Virginia game, and West Virginia was really shooting themselves in the foot there. They did have an ugly one against Cal, and North Carolina they beat by 10, but those are not really the heavy hitters. But I think Syracuse, like you said, they're battle tested. They've been in these tough games, and I think with Kyle McCord, and not passing offense against that defense will be able to make enough big plays. I think it might come down to the last possession, like you said, but I'm going to take the orange in this one. I'm going to go with a 31-27 win for Syracuse.
Yeah, nice. All right, let's move on to the next day, which is Friday. Boise State, UNLV. Speaking of that UNLV team, so I like Boise State a lot in this game because of Genty. They're the second best rushing offense in the country because of him. He puts up huge numbers every game, and I don't think that'll be any different here. I like UNLV's offense, but I think because Boise State can put up a lot of points as well with that rushing offense, I think they're going to be able to, move the ball effectively and score a lot. And I think Boise State's going to win this. I'm going to say it's probably going to be like a 38 to like 35 game. What do you got, Ian?
Oh, the one thing to note here is that UNLV is actually in the top 25 on rushing defense. So their game plan is going to be very.
But sorry, that could be skewed because a lot of times in their games they're ahead because their offense is so good. So the teams are not rushing as much and they're passing more. I think that could be why it's skewed. But again, I feel like the reason I meant that, I felt that way, is just because I feel like Boise State's going to be able to control this game offensively, and that I don't think UNLV is going to be able to score it up. But go ahead, sorry.
No, you're definitely not wrong there, but it's definitely going to be fixation on the game plan for UNLV is to attack Gentry and make sure they plug those holes so he does not get through that really good offensive line. With that, they're going to need to make sure that passing-wise, that Madsen can come in and make sure he makes the big plays. And Madsen's actually done pretty good. He's only thrown 2 picks in the year. And comparing that to UNLV, very balanced, but they're built more on speed, and Boise State is more built on possession right now. I feel like if Boise State came and they play keep away, they can win this one. And this one is kind of a precursor to what could very well be the Mountain West Conference Championship. So there's a lot of there. With that, I think Boise State will find a way to control this game, keep that clock on their side, and make sure UNLV does not get enough chances on offense to really come back. So I'm going to take Boise State winning this one. I think it's going to be close, maybe down to like a touchdown, a late touchdown. But I'm going to go Boise State winning. I'm going to go with a 28-21 win for the Broncos.
Okay. Let's move on to Saturday's games, which we have Rutgers, USC. Oh, no, that's a Friday game as well. Sorry. Yes, because I'm actually going to go to this game. So I feel really bad about what's going on with this USC team because it's like, I felt like they were a 10-2 team coming into the season, and there is a ton of talent. The receiving core is top notch. Those guys make plays week in and week out, and Miller Moss is a pretty reliable quarterback. He's thrown, some timely interceptions that have really kind of derailed that, but defensively, they're not bad. I think Danton Lynn has kind of changed things a little bit there, but it's for whatever reason, they're snake bitten. They can't seem to win these one-score games, and it's been every week since the Wisconsin game, and that's like 4 weeks in a row now. So it's been kind of this like, death march into, oblivion now, because now it's like they don't even really have a chance of anything. And it's a shame because there was high hopes. They felt like they made the corrections by getting Danton Lynn, and it was going to be, this is going to work. And it felt like it should have worked, but it's just not happening. So, but I don't like this Rutgers team at all. I don't think they're very good. They got smoked by Wisconsin. UCLA beat them last week, and UCLA was a 1-win, 1-5 team coming into that game. The game, they had to fly across country. Rutgers, USC is going to be ready for this. The crowd's not going to be as amped because the game 1 of the World Series is that night. So there's going to be probably less of a crowd than normal. But I still feel like this is a game that USC should easily win. I'm going to say USC wins like 34 to like 22. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, and it's for me, it's really hard for me to take Rutgers seriously in this game when they're the first team to allow UCLA over 20 points this season. Not only that, again, doing homework, Rutgers has not beaten a team on the Pacific Coast time since 2016, and that was against New Mexico. Since then, they have not won a game, any game going west. They have not won on the road. So not looking too good. And I feel like this is a must win for Lincoln Riley and USC. I think they're going to, pull out in this one. I just don't see USC keeping up or Rutgers keeping up with SC's talent right now. So I'm going to go with this one. I'm going to go with 38-16.
Okay, nice. Hey, is there something up with your audio? Because it keeps coming in and out. Because like right now it's fine. I don't know. The funny thing is that like usually like when the recording goes through, it usually is fine. So I don't know. Maybe just as like my end on like the speaker coming through. That's probably why I'm hearing it. Okay. Let's move on to the next game is officially Saturday. It is Nebraska, Ohio State. I was hoping that Nebraska was going to come into this game one loss or less, but they lost to Indiana in spectacular fashion. And now Nebraska, after that beatdown, how do you get up for like the top 5 team in their house? I don't know. I mean, this is going to be very difficult for Matt Rule and Dylan Raiola. They looked terrible last week. Indiana, statistically, offensively, and defensively, are the top 5 in both, and they look great. So like, there's no fault in losing to a team like Indiana right now. But do they get back up for Ohio State? I don't think they do. I think Ohio State is going to come into this game ready to start really like playing that back half of the schedule after that Oregon loss. And, Ohio State has some difficult games left. They have Michigan, they have Indiana. They're going to be ready for this, but, for sure. And Penn State. So like, Ohio State has a gauntlet here the next 4 weeks into November. And, I feel like this is the start for them. This is a nice way to ease into this. They also get games in between those big ones. They get Purdue and Northwestern. So at least they get some easy ones there. But yeah, this game is going to be difficult. Penn State is going to be difficult. Indiana is going to be difficult. Michigan. But I like Ohio State in this game a lot because, one, it's a home game. Two, I feel like offensively, they were shown the path by Indiana that, you can throw the ball all over them against Nebraska. And, Ohio State can clearly do that with Howard and the bevy of playmakers that he has, Jeremiah Smith especially. So I expect Will Howard to have a good game. I expect their defense to come to play. Raiola has looked average in some of these big time matchups with Illinois and now Indiana. But yeah, I expect Ohio State to have their way with them. I'm going to say like a 35-17 game. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, I am going to put this under the trap game category because Nebraska's coming off getting blown out. Nebraska's coming off getting blown out. And usually when teams do that, you expect them to bounce back, and the coaching staff needs to make sure the team is more focused coming in this week, especially against Ohio State. And Ohio State's coming off a tough loss against Oregon and on a bye week. So, yeah, Ohio State, if they sleepwalk into this, they can very well get bit. Nebraska definitely has the capability of beating these teams. It just hasn't materialized right now. Yeah. With that being said, I still think Ohio State's going to win, but they need to be careful of themselves. They still need to play like A+ effort. They know, like you said, the back half of the schedule. This is really where it's going to, make up for that loss to Oregon, is they have to start now. So they can't be going into, these games sleepwalking. So I think Ohio State wins. I don't think they let that happen.
but maybe Nebraska puts a scare early. But I think Ohio State will roll here. I'm going to go 35-17 Buckeyes.
Nice. Okay, moving on to Notre Dame Navy. Now I got to watch Navy this week because we selected Navy Charlotte, and I'm glad I did because I got an idea of how they play. Definitely, they're defensively not as strong, so I think that's going to come into play in this game. I think Notre Dame will be able to move the ball because obviously some of the teams Navy plays aren't that good. This is a way better team that they'll play. But outside of Army, this is the best team that Navy will play all year. I feel like Notre Dame's going to be able to move the ball, but I also feel like Navy's going to be able to move the ball effectively. I think it's going to be like a 31-28 game, and maybe like Navy has the ball last and misses the field goal to tie it, and Notre Dame gets the win. But I mean, Notre Dame now has to play Army at the end, and I honestly now, if Army keeps winning out, which I feel like they will, I feel like Army is going to beat Notre Dame, and I'm calling it now. I know it's a week or two out, but this Army team with Daly, I mean, I'm telling you, man, like I'm really impressed. They're a machine on offense, and their defense is like top 5. So like you combine the two, and it's like that is dangerous. Like it is, most teams don't play the option, and they run it better than anyone else in the country. And then not only that, they're able to play the pass really well, which that really is huge because, if the game is a shootout, which most likely every game that Army is going to play is going to be a shootout, they're able to, be effective against the pass, which that goes a long way to beating these bigger teams. But Ian, your thoughts? Well, like I said, 31-28. That's my prediction. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, and the last time these two teams played each other and they were ranked at the same time was 2009. Tim Tebow was in his senior year when that happened. Yeah. So let's just put that into context how long it's been. But you hit the nail on the head.
I think that was the former Georgia Tech coach that was there.
Ooh,
I can't remember if he was there.
Maybe.
Or not. I don't remember. This is that's like 20 years ago now, so who knows? But go ahead. Sorry.
But you're definitely right. Navy defensively is not as strong, comparatively speaking, to the other teams they're playing against, and especially against Notre Dame. This is, besides the Army game, their toughest game they'll play this year offensively, or best offensive opponent they're going to play. Notre Dame, obviously, it's pretty simple. You're going to have to, plug this option and these run plays and do these gadget plays. As primeval as it looks, it is very tricky to stop, as any team can tell you. So for for Notre Dame, it's very important to get up into the box. Make sure you still have your safeties in the back in case they do run a play, or at least to make sure you stop a big run. But it's no secret what they're going to be trying to do against you. For Notre Dame, coming out early, getting enough points on the board so you are not playing Navy's game is going to be important. If they can score maybe 2 touchdowns early, Notre Dame can really handle it. If not, it might be tough sledding. I think Notre Dame does get it done and maybe gets out to a quick start, and Navy's playing catch up, which they haven't really been able to do this year. And it's tough to do in that offense. So I think Notre Dame is going to win this one based on a pretty good first half and able to prevent any big runs from Navy. So I'm going to go Irish winning. I'm going to go with 27-21 win for Notre Dame.
Nice. Yeah, and I looked it up. It was Paul Johnson, but he was at the Naval Academy from 2002 to 2007 and then left to Georgia Tech for like 10 years. So I was right. He did go from Navy to Georgia Tech, but he was already gone by the time that 2009 game happened. So, okay, let's move on to Washington, Indiana. This Washington team is really like just kind of fallen off. They beat that Michigan team earlier in the year, but then like they got smoked by Iowa, and then they who else did they get smoked by? 1 second. They got smoked by.
Well, no, they lost to Iowa, and I think they lost to Rutgers. I know that.
Yeah, lost to Rutgers. Yeah, I mean they just been kind
And they
of
lost the Apple Cup.
yeah, and they lost to Washington State. So they've lost like 3 games so far. I think they're 3-3, and or no, 4-3. And I guess beating Michigan is kind of a big deal because they were the defending national champion and you played them in the championship game last year. I mean, I guess it's good for your revenge, but the rest of the results have not been good. And this Indiana team is a freaking buzzsaw. Like, it is literally, I don't think, I mean, I'm not going to say it because everyone's starting to realize it now. They were on all over Big Noon kickoff, and now they're being College Game Day this Saturday. So, like, everyone is aware about this Indiana team. I think the only thing that can hold them back right now is the fact that Rourke is hurt. He hurt his thumb either last week or the week before, and so they held him out of the rest of the game as they were destroying him. But if his backup can continue the trend, which the rest of that Nebraska game, he put it to him as well. So I fully expect this offense to hum regardless of whoever is behind center. Rourke was putting up huge numbers, and if he can get back, he has a shot to get to New York for Heisman finalist potential because his numbers were so big. But, right now it's like if he's hurt, who knows what will happen. But besides that, Indiana's defense is really great. Their offense is phenomenal. They run the ball. They do everything. Like, they're like an all everything team right now. Outside of maybe special teams is not like top tier, but offense, defensively, they're top notch. And I like them in this game big. I like them regardless of who's who's playing quarterback. I feel like they can still score that 40-point streak, and I'm going to say they score like 42 to like 17. What do you got, Ian?
This I actually think is going to be close. I think, again, another possible trap game because Washington, they've had bad losses. But one thing to note is that they do have a number 8 defense in the entire country and the number 1 passing defense in the country as well. And also, they're still top 25 in offense. Rogers is under center. We know how good he was in the run and shoot in Mississippi State. What it's going to come down to, though, is that defensively for Washington, they are not as strong on the run game. And that might be something, depending on Rourke's health, is what Indiana is going to lean on. And they are more capable of leaning on that. I think with that, I don't see too many ways where Washington can get ahead and stay ahead in this game compared to Indiana. So I think Indiana will get I don't know if they're going to score 40 points. I think that streak might end. But I think Indiana will find a way to just get enough on the board. They might be down a little bit, but I don't see Washington keeping them down. So I'm going to go Hoosiers keeping it alive. I'm going to go 35-24, pulling away late in the end.
Okay, next game we have is Oklahoma and Ole Miss. Oklahoma is really just, looked like dog crap the last couple of weeks. I mean, to the point where they got blown out by South Carolina. And this South Carolina team is feisty, so I'm not denying that because they destroyed Kentucky and looked good against LSU. But South Carolina also looked pretty bad against Ole Miss. But Oklahoma got beat by Texas pretty bad. They barely beat Auburn by a last second or late pick 6. They lost to that Tennessee team pretty handedly. I don't know what to make of this Oklahoma team. They've looked bad, but they still have talent. They had a lot of injuries to their wide receivers. This Ole Miss team is trying to recover after the Kentucky loss and the LSU loss. And, Ole Miss barely lost to both of those teams. Felt like Ole Miss was the better team in the LSU game. They just didn't get the result. I think they were losing the entire gameplay of the game, or winning the entire gameplay of the game and lost in overtime. So they were not losing a single second in that game. which is quite remarkable. Ole Miss has a really good offense, and I think Oklahoma's struggled to be able to stop these teams from putting up a decent amount of points. So I feel like Ole Miss is going to score at least 30 points, and I feel like Oklahoma still will probably be able to score like 20 something because I don't like Ole Miss's defense a ton. I'm going to say Ole Miss wins like 31 to like 25. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, and with Ole Miss being the number one offense in the SEC right now, it is really tough for me to see Oklahoma, after giving up 35 to South Carolina, for them to kind of hang in it and keep Ole Miss at bay. Ole Miss's losses have really been their own doing. They were their own worst enemy in the game with the penalties and the play calling, and that's them. And that's something they need to fix. But if Ole Miss just stays out of their own way and they're clearly better than this Oklahoma team, they can win this. If not, Oklahoma's got a chance in it. But I think Ole Miss will get it together, and I think they'll find a way to win. So I'm going to go Rebels winning. I think, I just don't see Oklahoma stopping that offense. I'm going to go with like a 34-19 win for the Rebels.
Yeah, and I agree. I feel like it's just, Ole Miss just has that offense, and I feel like they're going to be able to move the ball. Okay. Next game we have Missouri, Alabama. This is an interesting game because it's like Alabama is coming off 2 losses, one to Vanderbilt and then one to Tennessee. And you would think that like, oh, woe was me, the season's over. This is not the 4-team playoff. There is still a lot to play for. And that Vanderbilt loss seemingly is getting better because Vanderbilt keeps winning. And so there's a lot to play for here for Alabama. I feel like it's in Tuscaloosa. They have a better chance. And conversely with Missouri, Missouri has not looked good. They barely beat Auburn last week. They've struggled in a lot of these games. They haven't like blown like anyone out. And, they should have lost to Vanderbilt. And, they're just, I don't know. They got blown out by Texas A&M, and that's their only loss so far. But I feel like Alabama is a way better team than this Missouri team. I like them offensively, but I don't like them to be able to really stop Alabama a ton. And I think they'll be able to get a decent amount of points, but I think Alabama will score more. And I'm going to say like Alabama wins like 34 to like 24. What do you got, Ian?
So for history's sake, Missouri has never beaten Alabama since they joined the SEC. And they have never – the last time they beat Alabama was when they were part of the Big 8, not even the Big 12 at that point, in 1975. So it's been a long time, and it's in Tuscaloosa. They've only played 2 road games, and one of them was against UMass, and they won that one.
The other one was the Texas A&M game, and they got blown out in that one. So I just don't see Missouri – they had a really good start to the year, but there's a lot of games where they've kind of been smoke and mirrors. They did have a gutty win against Boston College, really lucky against Vandy, and then they got Auburn kind of self-destructed. They pretty much handed them the win in that one. But I don't see Alabama doing this because the pressure wasn't on before. It is beyond on now because you're right. It's 12-team playoff. They're not out of it. They need to start winning and winning convincingly now. So I think the focus needs to be redefined here for Bama, and this is beyond a must-win game for them. So I think Bama gets it done, and I just don't see Missouri keeping up. I'm going to go with a 34 to let's like 14 win for the Tide.
Nice. Okay, next one we've got BYU UCF. UCF is kind of the wheels are falling off. They had a shot at beating Iowa State. They probably should have beat them. I think they were showing the like win percentage or like the predictability of who's going to win the game. And like UCF had a 99.9 chance of winning that game at one point, and they still blew the game. They had an interception that was going for a pick six, and the guy drops it before the end zone, which has got to be really like the dumbest thing you could ever do. which I don't understand. It's like, man, get across the end line and then do whatever you want with the ball. Like, just, I don't understand why that's a thing to drop it. What does that prove? Doesn't do anything. And so many guys do it. It's like one of the dumbest things you could ever do. So, you know, they went to Ja'Carri Brown. He looked better than what KJ Jefferson was doing, because KJ Jefferson was very limited in the last couple of weeks he was in, and they were struggling to move the ball, especially against Florida. And then in this game, they moved the ball quite well, and they were doing like I said, they should have won that game against Iowa State. And you know, honestly, it's a mirror image to what happened to BYU, because BYU should have lost their game against Oklahoma State as well. I think they got lucky because, you know, they kind of got the ball late and was able to put that drive together. But again, I really like this BYU team a lot. I think Retzlaff does enough to make them effective. Defense and special teams, like I've said, non-offensive scores for them is through the roof. They do a lot of little things that other teams don't do well, and they do them very well. I think their offense is effective. They do a lot of trick plays. I think they're going to do that again against UCF. I like BYU in this game. I think it's going to be close, but I think BYU is going to probably win by like 8 points. I'm going to say BYU wins like 31 to like 23. What do you got, Ian?
So UCF still holds the best offense in the Big 12, and I think that's going to be is going to have to will them to a win if it gets down to it. But seeing how the offense has been since the Colorado game, the offense was looking good up until the Colorado game. They looked really bad against Florida. They looked terrible against Cincinnati, and then they were finally getting it going. But then you got to worry about the defense. The defense was able to hold up its end against Cincinnati. They gave up 38 against Iowa State. They gave 40 to Colorado. And now you got to play BYU, who has been scoring at least 30 points since they played, I think, Wyoming.
So they've been on a roll going into this. It is in Orlando, so there is a chance with, you know, the heat factor and all that, the humidity, that might play some factor. But considering Colorado had that same problem and they had no problem going into Orlando and winning big in that one, I don't see it. I think BYU just adds some misery right now for UCF. I think BYU wins it. Like maybe UCF can get it going early, but I don't see enough to keep up. I'm going to go Cougars winning. I'll go 33-21.
Okay, nice. All right, let's move on to Illinois, Oregon. This is a really huge game. This Illinois team is very pesky. Altmaier, very solid, running the show there for the Illinois offense. They beat Michigan last week, 21-7, wearing those old school unis, which were great, and the helmet and everything. I loved it. And Illinois presents itself as a more defensive team that can slow down this Oregon offense, but I don't think they will be able to, because this Oregon offense wasn't even slowed by Ohio State, and Ohio State is one of the best defenses in the country. So I don't think Illinois is going to be able to slow them down, regardless of what the stat numbers say for Illinois, which I know they're very good. And I know, Bielema, has put together really good defenses for Illinois the last couple of years, essentially since he's been there. But I don't think they've played as good of an offense the last couple of years outside of maybe Ohio State, like they're going to play here with this Oregon team. I think Oregon's going to score at least 30 points. I'm going to say they score like 35, and I'm going to say like Illinois scores like 14. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, you read my mind on Illinois with this one, because as good as the defense is, Oregon showed against Ohio State that if you stretch, a defense like that with, the spread of the wide receivers, you can find lanes and openings in both the run and passing. I think they're going to do that again here. I just don't see, with how successful Oregon was against Ohio State and, shutting out Purdue, Illinois being as sticky as they are, they might give them trouble, but I think Oregon's just too good right now.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Ducks winning. I'll go with a 38-20 win for Oregon.
Nice. And moving on to this next game, this is my upset alert, and I'm going to pick it. I know Texas, I've said, has been one of the better teams of the country, but I think because Quinn Ewers is struggling and Arch Manning is obviously not there yet, that this is going to be a tough game for Texas to try to win. It's in Nash Vegas. I'm really been riding high on Vanderbilt. I love Pavia. I think he's very solid at quarterback, very athletic, makes a lot of plays. I think their defense will do enough, and I think they get the upset. I know it seems crazy that Vanderbilt would beat both Texas and Alabama in the same year, but this ain't your old Vanderbilt. This is definitely the new version of a very, talented playmaking with this quarterback. And that makes a huge difference because Vanderbilt, outside of Jay Cutler, in my entire life, has never had a talented quarterback like I said, outside of Jay Cutler. And I think Pavia is obviously not that level because Cutler was an NFL quarterback and a decent one for a really long time. I think Pavia is a very good college quarterback that, again, can move the ball effectively and score. And so I think that happens here. I think they can make enough plays on defense to keep them in the game. And then Pavia makes the plays to put them over the top. I'm going to say it's going to be a close one. I'm going to say like a 28-27 game. What do you got, Ian?
If that does happen, that means the last two games for Vandy between LSU and Tennessee will decide who goes to the SEC championship.
Yes, exactly. I know. That's why that's why this is huge.
Yeah. So there's a lot right on this one. What it's going to come down to for Vanderbilt is the same way they've beaten these teams and play a Vanderbilt game, make it a shootout, make them have to make these plays and answer right back. They can score quick. We know that. And that's what, they got Bama on. And not only that, limit the mistakes on your side and force them to make the errors.
That's how they beat Alabama. That's how they beat Va Tech. And that's how they've been winning these games.
It's trickier, though, because as much as you were struggled, and I know that secondary is going to like ball hawks in this game, I feel like the run game of Texas will complement that offense better than any of the teams. Most of these teams they played, with the exception of Kentucky, have not had solid run offenses to complement the passing game, including Alabama. So I think with that, Vandy will probably give them a scare, but I think Texas, with or without water bottles, is going to find a way to win this one based running game, and maybe just in the fact that they know Vanderbilt's going to try to make it a shootout, so don't give them that chance and maybe play keep away a bit. So I think the Longhorns win, keep the Commodores at bay. I'm going to go with a 27-14 win for the Longhorns.
Nice. Okay. FSU, Miami. We're not going to spend much time on this one because this is going to be a blowout. I just figured I'd mention it because it is a rivalry game. Miami, has played a lot of close games the last 3 weeks, but this is not going to be one of them. FSU is not good defensively, and they cannot score at all. And I don't love Miami's defense. I haven't really all year, but again, this is not a team that is going to be able to move the ball that well. I think Miami's going to win big. I'm going to say like 45-10. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, and not only that, Florida State, again, has still not scored more than 20 points since the first game of the year against Georgia Tech. So they might be able to break that trend because we know Miami's defense has certainly been not as great championship caliber right now. They've given up over 30 the last 3 games. But I don't see Florida State keeping up defensively with Miami. I think Miami will win this one big. I'm going to go with a 45-20 win. It is a rivalry game. You never know. The two teams hate each other, but if it comes down to a field goal with Florida State, you already know how that one's going to end.
Okay, moving on. LSU, Texas A&M. This is a huge game regarding SEC standings, because both these teams are undefeated in the SEC. So, like, there is a lot going into this game for both teams. It's in College Station. You know, I like LSU a lot. They looked really good against Arkansas, and I felt like Arkansas was a very sneaky good team, and LSU pretty much dominated that game. And I feel like LSU will win this game because I like Nussmeier. I feel like he's a very solid to good quarterback. And I don't like Wegman that much. I think he looked kind of average against Mississippi State when other quarterbacks have looked a lot better against them. You know, defensively, I like Texas A&M, but I think LSU's defense has come to play lately. And so I think that'll be the difference here, is that LSU will be able to make enough plays against Texas A&M, and then defensively, and then offensively, I'm almost assured of LSU's going to score like 30 plus points. So I'm going to say like a 38 to like 28 game for LSU. What do you got, Ian?
So I think this one, you're right. This game, whoever wins this is fast track to the SEC championship again. Not a guarantee because they still got landmines ahead. But I feel like with this one, it's in Kyle Field, tough environment. But A&M's wins have been against not the best teams. They beat Florida. They got a scare against Bowling Green in Arkansas. They did blow out Missouri. But that's not looking as good as it was. And Mississippi State was kind of hanging in there, but they won that one convincingly. Comparatively speaking, LSU, they won a close one against Ole Miss and South Carolina, but they blew out Arkansas and UCLA, teams they're supposed to beat. That's why I think LSU offensive is superior to A&M, and I don't see A&M putting up as many points as LSU in that situation. So I think LSU wins. I think across that 30-point mark. Whoever scores 30 points probably going to win the game, and I think LSU will be the one to do it. So I'm going to go with a 31 to 20 win for the Aggies.
Oh, you're saying the Aggies are going to win?
Oh, I'm sorry, LSU. Sorry,
that's what's like what? Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah, you're right. No, I figured
LSU
that.
Tigers.
I got to check that for a second. Okay, moving on. Penn State, Wisconsin. I think I'm going to call my second upset of the week here. I know Penn State's undefeated in number 3, but I still am not sold on them. Offensively, they look a lot better than years past. But I like Wisconsin because I like how Wisconsin has been playing the last 3 or 4 weeks. They blew out Purdue. They played well against some of these other teams. And I think Wisconsin in Camp Randall is going to be able to make some plays here to beat Penn State. I know it's going to be close. I'm going to say like probably like a 30 to 28 game. What do you got, Ian?
I think, I'm with you. I don't think this game is going to be a layup for Penn State because it's on the road at night in Madison. So it won't be easy. But this is, again, where I just think like Penn State defensively has enough to stop whatever Wisconsin can throw at them. Wisconsin isn't the strongest offensively. Right. So I think Penn State will just put up enough points. That's how a lot of these games have been coming down to, is I just see Penn State having maybe crossing the 24-point mark, and that'll be enough for the win. So I think Penn State will do that. And I think Wisconsin, if it is a Wisconsin game, will play it, down and dirty and make it a low-scoring game. But I think Penn State puts enough on the board to keep distance. So I'm going to go with the 24-17 win for the Nittany Lions.
Okay, last 2. We got Kansas State. Kansas only has 2 wins on the year and has played a lot of close games. So they might be due for one here, but I just really like this Kansas State team. We've talked about Avery Johnson all year. Their offense is really sound, really balanced. Avery is very efficient, and he has very good athletic ability to make plays with his legs. Defensively, they're really sound. They've beaten a lot of good teams. They had their one loss was to BYU, which, kind of an outlier of a game. But I like this Kansas State team a lot. like I said, Kansas could be due here, but I'm thinking Kansas State's going to get the win. I'm going to say it's going to be a close one. I'm going to say like a 28-24 game. What do you got, Ian?
Yeah, and it is a rivalry game. It's the Sunflower Showdown, so all that entails. But I think K-State's offense, and with Kansas struggling, I don't see them keeping up with K-State. If again, it's going to have to come down to a shootout, and it very well might be. But K-State's been in these situations before, like with the Tulane game, where it was a shootout, and they'll be able to win it out. But Kansas State has the better defense. I think they'll force enough turnovers and play, take advantage of those. So I'm going to go Wildcats winning. I'm going to go 38-21, Kansas State.
Yeah, and this Kansas State team, the rest of their schedule doesn't seem that difficult outside of the Iowa State game, but it's like Houston, Arizona State, Cincinnati. But the Iowa State game potentially could be a loser goes home game because BYU may be slotted already in as an undefeated team. So it would be Kansas State or Iowa State trying to get into the conference championship game. But it may not be the end for like Iowa State, because if Iowa State only has that one loss and then Kansas State goes in the Big 12 championship game and loses, then Iowa State would be with only one loss and may get in the playoff because of that. And their luck might turn out the fact that they lost to Kansas State instead of having to lose. It's crazy how things like end up like that. It really is. Okay, so let's move on. Last game, SMU Duke. Duke has one loss so far this year, and they beat Florida State last week, and they haven't looked too impressive. They've kind of just like done what they've needed to offensively. Defensively, they're pretty sound. But I like this SMU team a lot. Since Jennings has taken over, they've really like kind of put the pedal to the metal offensively, and they've looked really good. Outside the one loss that they had, which was to BYU. Outside of that game, they've looked really good the rest of the year, and this SMU team really is on the verge of vying for an ACC championship game berth, which would be crazy because they're paying the ACC to even play in the conference, and now they would be in the conference championship game. They have Pitt next week as well, so a tough game, but relatively easy the rest of the year. Boston College, Virginia, and Cal, they should win those 3 games. So really, the next 2 weeks is going to determine if SMU goes, and the BYU was a non-conference game, so they could still afford a loss and still probably get into the ACC championship game. It's going to be interesting because SMU, Miami, and Clemson, I don't even know if any of them play each other. Which
I know SMU doesn't. They would have the easiest path forward. I know Miami plays. They don't play Clemson either.
They don't play Clemson either. So it's like literally all 3 of these teams are the best teams in the conference, and none of them play each other. So I know it's just a happenstance by schedule luck that is occurring, but it's still kind of wild that we won't know head to head who are the better teams until 2 of them get to play each other in the conference championship game. They all, because Clemson's loss is to Georgia, so they're undefeated in conference play. So all 3 of these teams could end up undefeated. How fair is that to an undefeated team? Like if SMU gets left out, that would be, God, that would be terrible. If 3 undefeated conference teams, and you like, man, what do you even do in that situation? I know they have tiebreaker situations where it's like their ranking goes into play, and like also liked teams played record as well, which none of them would be an issue because they're undefeated. So it's kind of wild, and sometimes it goes down to like points scored for the season. Like
it's point. I know the last tiebreakers, at least in the SEC, it was like points per game average. I think that's who or point spread or something like that. If it ever came down to a tiebreaker.
Yeah. So this could be really wild the last couple of weeks, because I really feel like outside of Miami's Syracuse game, that Miami's not going to play anyone tough. And well, I think Miami plays Tech, but Georgia Tech. And then I don't know, Clemson. I'm trying to see who they play. If they play like Pitt or somebody. Clemson they play Louisville, which is a tough one, next week. And yeah, they do play Pitt. So Louisville still has two tough ones, Louisville and Pitt, but Miami really doesn't. They have, Georgia Tech kind of, but if Haynes King is not playing, I'm not the biggest fan of the backup for Georgia Tech. And then, Syracuse, we'll see. I mean, I'm really intrigued to see more of the Syracuse team, especially in this game against Pitt, how well they'll fare. But yeah. So for to back to the prediction, taking so far to talk about this, I feel like SMU is going to win. Did I already give a prediction, or did you give a prediction?
You did not.
Okay, sorry. So I'm going to say like 34 to like 17. What do you got, Ian?
So SMU ranks third defensively in the ACC, and while Duke ranks second, and I do think this will be the toughest offense right now SMU is going to have to head up with, Duke's offense is in the bottom basement of the ACC right now. I don't see them really being able to get more than a touchdown or two against this kind of defense of SMU. So I think, Mustang put up enough points and win it. I'm going to go SMU winning. I'll go with, let's go 28-13.
Nice. Okay. That is the show, everyone. Before I wanted to go, I wanted to give a shout out to Voyage LA for the article that they did about us, for Hater Radio. You could check that out at voyagela.com. Shout out to them. I really appreciate them, giving us the publicity. I posted on Facebook, and, my family and friends really enjoyed it. And, it's a tremendous honor to get something like that, because this is the second largest media market in the country, and to get any kind of notoriety means a lot. That means that we're doing something well. And, we just, as of last night, got to 900 subscribers on YouTube. So we are very close to getting our goal of 1,000 subscribers for the year, which is crazy, because we had 2 as the start of last year, and now we're at close to 1,000. And I feel like everything's moving well. And Ian, I want to thank you for being a part of this and being a huge part of this success of this channel and of this brand. And so let's close it out. You could reach us at haterradio.com for all of our articles. I might do something for Florida, Georgia next week, so look out for that. You can reach us at X, Twitter, Threads, Instagram, TikTok, at hater_radio for those. For Facebook, it is Hater Radio CFB. For YouTube, it is at Hater Radio. Ian, what are your socials before we go?
Yes, at YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter, it's at G_Gator_G.
Okay, like, subscribe, comment, share, follow, all of it. Please help us out. The algorithm really appreciates it. Even my wife has been very good about liking a lot of the stories and reels and whatnot, and I greatly appreciate it. She's been a big trooper about, seeing those things and helping us out. And it's just the little things. Honestly, you get in the algorithm, and then it really starts spreading it out to people that would be interested. So that's the show, everyone. Enjoy these games. We'll talk to you on Sunday. Like I said, Sunday and Wednesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. All right, take care, y'all.